Mom, do you like the beach house I bought for you? Nathan asked me that in the middle of his father's memorial dinner. I remember it clearly. I was pouring my second cup of tea, my hands still smelling of cinnamon and baked apples, when his question landed like a stone in a silent pool of water. I froze. I didn't understand. I had never received a house. I was splitting my blood pressure pills in half just to make them last the month. And yet my son, he was talking about some beach house one he claimed he'd bought, put in my name, and had been sending maintenance money for every month for the past 2 years. Have you ever sat among your loved ones and suddenly felt like a stranger? Have you ever realized the world you were living in was nothing but a hollow shell? Leave a comment. I want to hear your story, and please stay, because what I'm about to tell you is something I never thought could happen in my own family. My name is Evelyn. At 67, I thought I was used to everything life could throw at you. Losing a husband, managing life on my own, children growing up and becoming distant. I didn't have much, but I was always proud that I still had my dignity. Until one Saturday afternoon when the one thing I had left also began to crumble. I lived just north of Indianapolis in a small wooden house my husband Frank re-roofed himself in the winter of 2002, just a year before he passed from a stroke. The house is cold. I keep the heat at a strict 60 degrees. The electric bill is too high. This year I've been splitting my blood pressure prescription in two because my pension doesn't cover it. I also clean an office building at night just to afford fresh groceries for the weekend. But today I'd spent the whole morning making Frank's favorite caramel apple pie, the one I only make on the anniversary of his passing. I kneaded the dough by hand, picked every apple myself, and even borrowed my neighbor's tablecloth, the one with the old cigarette burn Frank accidentally made years ago. I don't own anything new, but I try to keep the old things intact the same way I try to hold on to the image of my family. Nathan, my son, had told me he was coming for dinner with his wife Sarah. They're well off driving a sleek SUV and wearing designer clothes, but I never held it against them or felt a shred of jealousy. I used to think that as long as my child was happy, no hardship was too great. They arrived at 2 p.m. Nathan came in first, gave me a brief hug, then turned to help Sarah out of her coat. She was wearing a cream-colored trench coat, her makeup subtle and sophisticated. Her hair was pulled back neatly, and her eyes looked at me the way you'd look at an old photograph, distant and unnecessary. "Hello, Evelyn," she said, her smile offering the bare minimum of courtesy. I nodded, not blaming her, just feeling a little cold. We sat down at the table. Nathan talked about his company expanding to Austin, Texas. Sarah mentioned their trip to Europe last fall and their plans to renovate their ground floor. I just sat there pouring tea and nodding. Every detail they shared seemed to pull me further away from the life I was living, the one I was desperately patching together every day to keep from falling apart completely. I had just finished pouring my second cup of tea when Nathan set his spoon down, looked at me and smiled faintly. "Oh, by the way, Mom, I've been meaning to ask, do you like the beach house I bought for you?" I froze. A beach house. I sat there, my hand gripping the teacup so tightly the steam stung my eyes, but I couldn't even blink. I looked at Nathan, hoping he would burst out laughing and say it was a joke. But he didn't. His eyes were serious. Sarah, meanwhile, suddenly looked up, her lips pressed into a thin line. I slowly set the cup down, trying to keep my voice from trembling. "What did you say, dear? The house in the Carolinas." "Mom, didn't you get the paperwork? It's in your name. I've been transferring the maintenance money every month, too." It's been almost 2 years now. The air in the room turned as heavy as stone. The ticking of the wall clock suddenly seemed deafening, as if it were counting down to something about to shatter. I looked up at Nathan. I wanted to believe my son was mistaken, or that this was some kind of test. I wanted to believe I'd misheard him. But deep down I knew something was terribly wrong. I don't understand, I said slowly, each word catching in my throat. I've never received a house, Nathan. The color drained from Nathan's face. Sarah turned away and reached for her phone. And that was the moment it all started to unravel. I stared at Nathan for a long time after he asked about the beach house. Everything around me seemed to blur except for the face of my only son. He was still talking, still wearing that casual smile, as if he'd just mentioned a weekend trip. But my heart had stopped. Only one thought echoed in my mind. If what he was saying was true, then what was this life I was living? I pressed my hands together in my lap, trying to keep my voice as calm as possible. Well, my memory isn't what it used to be, now. Why don't you tell me again? Nathan looked a little surprised, but he quickly recovered his composure. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. I said that almost 2 years ago I bought you a beach house in South Carolina. You remember, right? It's a small place, but quiet, right near the sand. You always loved the ocean back when Dad was still around. I nodded slightly, forcing a smile. I remembered clearly how Frank used to talk about buying a little cottage by the sea when we retired, but it never happened. All we had was our old house in Indianapolis with its leaky roof and a furnace that rattled on cold winter nights. The closest thing I had to the ocean was a framed photo on my nightstand of the two of us at the Myrtle Beach Pier, taken in 1987. Nathan continued, his voice growing more enthusiastic. I put the deed in your name. All the paperwork was finalized back then. I've also been depositing $2,000 into your account every month for extra spending money. You've been getting the deposits from First Delta Bank, right? I tried to swallow. My throat was bitter. I'd never heard of that bank. The only account I had was at a small local branch I'd used since 2003. There hadn't been a single extra penny in it besides my pension checks, but I couldn't let my confusion show. Not now. I think so. I'm sure of it. I'll have to check my statements. Nathan nodded as if I'd just confirmed the obvious. Across the table, Sarah suddenly stood up, pulling out her phone. Excuse me, I have to make a quick call. My mother was asking about my dad's medication. Her voice was airy, her eyes on no one. She walked straight into the kitchen, leaving the door slightly ajar. I watched her go, a knot tightening in my stomach. I didn't know why, but something felt off. Sarah had never been talkative with me, but this time, her averted gaze, the way she left the table, the moment Nathan mentioned the house, sent a chill down my spine. I turned back to the pot roast on my plate. I'd simmered it for over 4 hours, but now it tasted like ash. I took one small bite and set down my fork and knife. When Nathan and Sarah left later that afternoon, a cold drizzle had started to fall. I stood on the porch waving as their sleek SUV disappeared around the corner. Then I went back inside, locked the door, and leaned against the kitchen wall. I stood there for a long time. I replayed everything Nathan had just said. $2,000 a month. 2 years. A beach house. First Delta Bank. I glanced at the refrigerator, where last month's electric bill was tacked up a bill I'd just paid a week late because I couldn't scrape the money together. I took the bill down and flipped it over. With a slightly trembling hand, I quickly wrote 3 lines. Account. 4432 Bank. First Delta, total. 2,624 equals $48,000. I folded the paper into a tiny square and tucked it into the pocket of the robe hanging in my bedroom. It was where I kept my bus pass and other small things I couldn't afford to lose. I didn't know what I was chasing, but I knew I had to dig deeper, because for the past 2 years I hadn't received a single bank alert. Not one extra cent had appeared in my account. Meanwhile, 3 months ago, my cable had been shut off because I couldn't pay the $78 bill. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, Nathan's words echoed in my head. I've been depositing $2,000 into your account every month. And for some reason, I couldn't shake the image of Sarah getting up from the table, walking into the kitchen to make a call right as the conversation turned to the house. I had no proof, but I felt as if a familiar shadow was creeping through my home. I woke up earlier than usual before the sun had fully risen. I put on an old wool sweater and a faded felt hat, poured some coffee into a travel mug, and took the number 6 bus downtown. I rarely left my neighborhood, so it took me a moment to find the first Delta Bank branch Nathan had mentioned. It was in a gleaming modern glass building. Inside, the air smelled of fresh floor polish and cold corporate perfume. I walked up to the teller's counter, my hands trembling slightly, but I forced my voice to be clear. "Good morning. My name is Evelyn Harrison. I need to check on an account that I believe is in my name. I have my ID and social security card." The young woman behind the counter gave me a professional smile. She invited me to sit and typed my name into her system. Less than a minute later, she looked up, a flicker of hesitation in her eyes. "We do show an account in the name of Evelyn Harrison opened at this branch about 2 years ago, but I'll need to verify a few more details." She checked my ID number and date of birth, then pulled out a file. I saw the account application form. My name was there. My date of birth was correct. The address, it wasn't mine. The address listed here is 847 Maple Street, apartment 2B. "Have you ever lived there, ma'am?" she asked. I shook my head immediately. "No. I've lived at the same address for 12 years. I've never even heard of Maple Street." She nodded, turning to the next page. "And this is the signature used to open the account. Can you confirm if this is yours?" She handed me the paper. At a glance, it was my name, Evelyn Harrison, written by hand. But I know how I write the letter M. I've always written it with a little loop at the beginning, a habit from elementary school. This signature just had 3 sharp, straight lines. "That's not mine," I said, my voice dry. The teller's expression turned serious. She called over a manager, a man in his 50s with silvering temples. He listened patiently as I gave him a brief summary, then spoke in a low, measured tone. "Ma'am, I'm afraid it appears your identity was used to open a fraudulent account. This is a case of identity theft, and unfortunately, it's happening more and more to seniors." I sat there, my hands clasped together, my lips pressed tight. I'd seen stories about this on the news. People calling, pretending to be from the IRS, fake emails from banks. But I never thought it would happen to me, with my name, with my information. I took a deep breath and looked the manager straight in the eye. "I need to know who opened that account. Is there any way to find out? We can review our security footage and the contact information provided at the time of opening. But privacy regulations will limit what I can share directly. However," he paused, then said slowly, "I strongly advise you to file a police report. And if you suspect the person who did this is someone you know, you need to be prepared." I nodded. A suspicion was already taking root in my heart. But I didn't dare say it out loud. I left the bank around noon. A cold wind whipped down the main street, forcing me to clutch the collar of my coat. In my pocket, I was still gripping the piece of paper with the account number 4432 that I'd written down the night before. On the bus ride home, my mind went blank. Maybe I was in denial, denying a truth I was about to be forced to accept. The bus dropped me back in my familiar neighborhood in the middle of the afternoon. The sky was still as gray as it had been that morning, but now it was colder, damper. I got off at the corner of 13th Street and walked the short distance home. Each step felt heavy, not because my legs were tired, but because my heart was carrying a stone I didn't know how to set down. I went inside, hung my coat on the rack, and stood for a moment at the kitchen table. The wall clock ticked steadily. Our wedding photo from 1978 was still hanging there, faded with dust. Everything around me was the same as yesterday, but I wasn't. I poured myself a glass of warm water, my eyes fixed on the window where the leaves of the maple tree on the lawn were slowly falling. I started to remember Sarah. Could it have been Sarah? I'd never warmed up to Sarah, not because she was rude or disrespectful, never. It was because there was always a thin, cold pane of glass between us, one that neither of us ever tried to break. She was a modern woman, sharp and put together. I was just an old, quiet woman with gray hair. But there were two times, that now sent a shiver down my spine. Once, about a year ago, Sarah came over while Nathan was on a business trip. She said she wanted to help me organize my tax files because the laws changed this year, and you might be able to adjust your filings for a bigger refund. I didn't think much of it. I thought maybe my daughter-in-law was finally showing some concern. I handed her my old file box and went to the kitchen to cook. When I came back, she had put everything away and said I left all the important papers in that red envelope for you. I never checked them again. The files were still in the drawer of Frank's old desk where I kept everything he'd ever touched. Another time I came home from the grocery store to find Sarah sitting in that same old office. She said she was looking for a picture frame for a photo of Dad, but looking back, I couldn't understand why she would be in that room. In that room, in a drawer on the left, I kept old things like savings passbooks, copies of my ID, old medical cards, and even some insurance documents I no longer used. A cold dread began to creep in. Had I been too trusting, I went upstairs and opened the drawer where I kept my old IDs. A copy was missing. I couldn't remember the last time I'd held it. It might have been years. But I knew I would never throw it away. I'm the kind of person who never throws out any paper with my name on it. I live alone. I'm careful, especially since Frank passed. It was then that I truly started to believe Sarah could be behind it all. I pulled out my old worn address book from the kitchen cabinet and found the number for Jerome Whitmore, my husband's old lawyer, now retired. I called his landline and he still remembered me. His voice was weaker, but his mind was as sharp as ever. I suspect a family member used my name to open a bank account. I said, my voice trembling slightly. Whose name, he asked. My name, I replied. And I'm not sure, but it might be my daughter-in-law. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line. Evelyn, he said, if you suspect a relative, I urge you to be extremely cautious. Identity theft isn't just about money. It destroys trust relationships, and sometimes you can never get it back. Keep every piece of paper, check every detail. And if you can avoid a direct confrontation until you have clear proof. I nodded, though I knew he couldn't see me. We ended the call after a few pleasantries about our health, and I sat there, the phone still in my hand. Dusk began to fall. I walked over to the small table where I kept Nathan and Sarah's wedding photo. The frame was oak. I'd given it to them at their engagement party. In the picture, Nathan was beaming, and Sarah was nestled gently in his arm, her eyes looking straight at the camera, strong, intelligent, and unreadable. I picked up the frame. My hand was shaking. I turned it slowly, and then I placed it face down on the table. I didn't know if what I was thinking was true, but that night, for the first time in many years, I left a family photo facing the wall. 2 days later, I decided I had to do something I had never imagined doing in all my years as a mother. I called Nathan early in the morning, my voice deliberately light, and told him I needed to stop by to pick up some of his father's old health insurance papers, some claim forms from back when he worked at the local lumber yard before his stroke. No problem, Mom, Nathan said without a hint of hesitation. I'm free this afternoon. Why don't you come over for dinner with us? I agreed. Though my heart was beating so fast, I had to sit down to steady myself. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but deep down I needed to confirm something, and I was starting to fear I had made a terrible mistake in suspecting Sarah. I arrived at Nathan's house at 4:30. Their 2-story home was in a new subdivision with a machine-mowed lawn and warm yellow lights hanging from the porch. Sarah opened the door, still polite, still smiling. That same smile, not cold but not exactly warm either. I made the excuse that I wanted to find the files myself in Nathan's old office, saying I remember exactly where I put those things. Nathan nodded immediately, still acting carefree. "Go right ahead, Mom. The old stuff is still in the bookcase on the left." Nathan's home office was neat with the faint scent of peppermint essential oil in the air. There was an oak desk, a high-backed swivel chair, wall-mounted shelves, and a silver-gray laptop open and in sleep mode. I tiptoed toward the desk, my heart pounding. I didn't know what I was hoping to see or not see, but as my eyes scanned the screen, it appeared. A new notification from an internal application popped up in the corner of the monitor, hitting me like a slap in the face. Confirmation withdrawal from account number 4432 approved. Client Evelyn Harrison. I stood frozen. It took a few seconds for my brain to process the meaning of those words. A withdrawal from that very account, number 4432, the fraudulent account in my name, and it had been approved by an internal corporate system. I leaned in closer, trying to memorize every word. I noted the transaction time, then fumbled for the phone in my coat pocket and secretly snapped a picture of the screen. It was blurry from my shaking hands, but the information was still legible. Less than a minute later, I heard Nathan's footsteps approaching. I quickly backed away from the desk, pretending to be rummaging through some files on the bookshelf. "Hey, Mom, would you like some mint tea?" Nathan asked from the doorway. "Yes, thank you, dear," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. That evening, I sat through dinner without tasting a thing. Sarah talked about her new yoga class. Nathan mentioned he was thinking of getting a new car. I just sat there, nodding my insides, feeling like they were being sliced by 100 tiny shards of glass. When I got home, I took off my shoes and walked straight over to my neighbor Jenny's house. She was an older woman like me with an old computer. She used to play solitaire. I borrowed it, saying I needed to look up some old insurance information. I typed Nathan's company name into the search bar. It didn't take long to find 2 articles. One published nearly a year ago stated clearly, DKH Capital is currently under investigation for the loss of nearly $400,000 in partner investment funds. The investigation is focused on the Eastern Branch, where Nathan Harrison formerly served as executive director. The second article, more recent, was from just 4 months ago. Nathan Harrison has officially stepped down from the DKH Capital Board of Directors, citing personal reasons after a period of consideration. A company representative declined to comment. I sat silently in front of the screen, my hands resting on my knees, my eyes glued to the words. The days Nathan didn't answer his phone. The months he said he was busy with long-term projects. Now everything clicked into place like an elaborate trap, and I was the bait placed right in the middle. I opened the screenshot from my old phone again. The transaction time, the account number, the name of the person withdrawing, Evelyn Harrison. And then I realized the thing that hurt the most wasn't the money that was taken. It was my name being used to cover up my own son's downfall. I had thought Sarah was the one who had stolen everything from me. But it turned out it was Nathan. The baby I used to rock to sleep when he was teething, the little boy who promised he would buy Mom the biggest house in the world. When he grew up, he had stolen my identity, my trust, and the peace of my final years. I didn't go to Nathan's house to cause a scene. I just wanted my son to tell me the truth, or at least look me in the eye and admit what he'd done. After learning everything from that email and the online articles, I couldn't stay silent anymore. My heart was a battlefield of conflicting emotions, but I had to face him. I needed to hear it from his own lips. I needed to hear him explain why my name had been used as a shield for his failure. I chose a Saturday afternoon. The wind had picked up early cold, but with a crisp, clear sun. I wore a thick wool sweater and carried a folder I'd compiled, the bank statements, the screenshot of the withdrawal email, and the 2 articles I'd printed out. I placed them in an old plastic clasp folder and held it tightly in my hand. Nathan opened the door on the first ring. "Mom, we need to talk," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clearer than it had ever been. Sarah wasn't home. She was probably picking up their daughter from dance class, Nathan later mentioned. I sat down at the dining table, the same familiar table where I used to wrap cookies for his child during the holidays. The kitchen was as bright and polished as ever, but I felt a deep chill inside me. I opened the folder. Without a word, I pushed each paper across the table toward Nathan. He was silent for a long time. At first, he looked at each page without expression. Then I saw his eyes start to blink faster. His hand lightly touched the printout of the email from his company's internal system. When he got to the statement showing a withdrawal from the Evelyn Harrison, number 4432 account, I heard him swallow hard. "What is this, Mom?" I didn't answer. I just looked at him. Nathan put a hand to his forehead and let out a short, defensive half-laugh. "Mom, this has to be an accounting mistake. Or maybe it was Rebecca, my old assistant. She must have entered your information incorrectly when I was trying to set up that retirement fund for you." I said nothing. I just pushed one more paper toward him. The confirmation from First Delta Bank that a fraudulent account had been opened at the Maple Street address, a place I'd never lived, with a signature that wasn't mine. The color drained from Nathan's face. "Mom, let me explain." I just kept looking at him. Then he dropped his hands from the folder. His eyes avoided mine. It was me. His voice was a whisper softer than the ticking of the clock in the room. "When the company started losing money, I panicked. Bad investments, shareholders threatening to sue. If they found out I'd misused the funds, my career would have been over." He looked down at his hands, his voice growing hoarse. "I never meant to take from you. It was just... I thought you didn't need much. I was going to pay it all back. I just needed more time." I sat perfectly still. I heard him, but it felt distant, like an echo in an empty well. "I used your name to open the account. Used a temporary rental address on Maple Street. The signature, I practiced it a few times. Then I'd transfer the money I was sending you into that account and withdraw it from there. Everyone would think you were receiving it. And you were doing okay, right?" I clenched my fists on the table. My voice trembled slightly, but each word landed like a stone. "Okay," Nathan looked up. "Do you think I was okay when I was counting out my blood pressure pills every night, splitting them in half to make them last, when I had to eat instant noodles for 4 meals in a row because I couldn't afford groceries? When I spent the winter with the heat set to 60 degrees wearing 2 pairs of wool socks?" My voice broke. I thought, "You were busy." I told myself you were living a good life, taking care of your own family. I didn't blame you. "But do you know what hurts the most, Nathan? I thought you still loved me. But all the while you were just using my name as a tool." He tried to touch my hand. "Mom, I'm so sorry." I pulled my hand away, not forcefully but with finality. "I don't need your apology. I needed the truth, and you've just given it to me." Just then the front door opened. Sarah walked in carrying a bag of groceries with little Ava trailing behind her. She saw me first, then her eyes darted to Nathan. Her face instantly tensed. "What's going on?" Nathan turned away, not answering. I stood up, gathering my papers, ready to leave. But Sarah walked closer, her gaze sweeping over the documents on the table. When she saw the name Evelyn Harrison and the account number 4432, she froze. "What is this?" she asked, her expression shifting from surprise to suspicion. Nathan still said nothing. Then I saw Sarah's face turn white as a sheet. She took a sharp breath, looking at Nathan as if seeing the man she married for the very first time. "Nathan, what did you do?" No one answered. There was nothing left to say. Sarah quietly took Ava's hand and led her into another room without another word. I heard a door close behind them, not loudly, but with the definitive click of an ending. I turned and walked to the door. Nathan moved to help me, but I waved him off. As I stepped onto the porch, my vision blurred and the world began to tilt. I don't remember falling. I just remember seeing Nathan's neighbor, Mr. Warren, who lived next door, running toward me, helping me up, calling my name, and hearing Nathan's panicked voice behind me. I could hear my own ragged breaths a-ringing in my ears. I felt cold, but it wasn't from the weather. It was because my heart had gone cold long before. I woke up in a white room that smelled of antiseptic. The overhead light was dim. The ceiling had a few old water stains. I didn't remember how I'd gotten to the hospital, only that my throat was parched and a dull ache throbbed in my chest. At first I thought I was dreaming, but when I turned to my left and saw Sarah sitting there holding a sleeping Ava in her lap, I knew it was real. Sarah didn't look at me right away. She just sat there, her gaze fixed on the window, as if her mind were 1,000 miles away. I wasn't sure what moved me more, the fact that I was awake or the fact that Sarah had stayed. A moment later, when she realized my eyes were open, Sarah stood up. She pulled a small envelope from her coat pocket, placed it on the bedside table, then pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders and walked out of the room without a word. I watched her go, noticing the beige scarf I had knitted for her the first Christmas after they were married was still wrapped around her neck. She had said thank you back then, but she'd never worn it. I picked up the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. Sarah's script was neat, slanted, and concise. Evelyn, I am so sorry. I used to think you didn't like me. I never asked questions because I felt I had no right. I thought Nathan was taking care of you. I thought if something was wrong, you would say so. But I was wrong because you were always silent. I am sorry for not listening with my heart. Sarah. I read it twice. Then I folded the letter and held it to my chest. I felt no relief, but the weight was no longer crushing, just an empty feeling, like a long white space between two things that had been broken. The next day I was discharged. Mr. Warren, Nathan's neighbor, drove me home. When I got to my front door, I found a postcard tucked underneath it. There was no sender's name, no return address, just a short line written in black ink. You have the right to decide. I'm not running anymore. It was Nathan's handwriting. I recognized it immediately. I sat down at my dining table and gathered all the documents I had collected from the bank, from the company, from the email, and arranged them into neat piles. Then I called Mr. Harris, my late husband's old lawyer. He answered on the third ring. His voice was as deep and measured as the last time we spoke. Evelyn, I'm here. I need to know. If I give this entire file to the police, I paused. What will my son be facing? Mr. Harris was silent for about 5 seconds before he answered. This case constitutes several felonies: financial fraud, identity theft, and laundering personal funds through a relative's account. The total damages are estimated to be over $70,000. The fact that the perpetrator is a highly knowledgeable professional could make the penalties more severe. If fully prosecuted, he could be facing 3 to 5 years in prison. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. I'll always protect you, Mommy. I heard Nathan's voice, a 6-year-old boy clutching an old teddy bear. Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a really, really big house. His voice echoed somewhere in my heart, so distant now, but never completely gone. Evelyn, Mr. Harris's voice gently prodded from the other end of the line. I opened my eyes. If I don't want my son to go to prison, what are my other options? He thought for a moment. You could negotiate with the prosecutor's office to pursue a civil rather than a criminal case, but that would require you not to press charges directly and for your son to cooperate fully, make full restitution, and sign a commitment to never reoffend. However, there's a risk. If the prosecutor deems the crime serious enough, they could press charges on their own. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. I put the phone down and sat in silence for a long time. I thought of the winter night I had to turn off the heat because I couldn't afford the bill, curled up under 2 thin blankets, crying alone in the dark. I thought of the 2 years I didn't get new glasses because I was afraid I wouldn't have enough money for my medication. I thought of Nathan calling to ask, "How are you, Mom?" while he was draining every last dollar from an account in my name. If I forgave him, I would be betraying myself. I would be betraying all the months of suffering I endured without a word of complaint. I would be betraying the feeling of being treated as if I didn't exist. But if I turned in my own son, I would be cutting all ties. I would be accepting that a mother's love couldn't save a man sinking in a hole of his own making. I wasn't sure what was right or wrong. I only knew. I couldn't go on living like a shadow, a person whose name and life could be borrowed and then forgotten, as if she never existed at all. One Monday morning, I packed everything I had into Frank's old canvas tote bag. It wasn't much, just a thick file folder carefully sealed in a plastic zip-top bag. Inside were the fraudulent bank statements, the confirmation of the mismatched signature from First Delta Bank, the deed to a house in my name that I had never seen, and a photocopy of the article detailing the investigation into Nathan for financial mismanagement. I folded each paper neatly as if it were the last will and testament for the rest of my life. I didn't call ahead. I just went to the office of Mr. Harris, the lawyer, who had been with my husband for years, the same man who had witnessed the signing of our first home purchase back in 1981. His office was small, the old wooden floors creaking under my heels. Mr. Harris was just as I remembered him. His eyes were old but bright, his expression free of judgment. He remained silent as I placed the tote bag on his desk. I sat down, removed my gloves, and began to pull out each document. I didn't need to say much. I pushed everything toward him and then looked up. "I want you to submit this entire file to the district attorney's office." He looked at me, his gaze unwavering. "I know exactly what my son did." I continued, my voice slow but steady. "I taught him that wrong is wrong, no matter the reason. I can't take back that lesson now, just because he's the one who did wrong." "Are you sure, Evelyn?" he asked quietly. "I don't forgive him," I replied, "and I choose the truth." 3 days later, on a Tuesday morning, Nathan was arrested. A neighbor later told me that 2 federal agents arrived at 7:10 a.m. sharp. There were no sirens, no dramatic scene like in the movies, just 2 men in dark coats who read him his rights. Nathan came out and went with them without a fight. I wasn't there, but an acquaintance who works at the county courthouse called to tell me that Nathan had made only one request to see his mother one last time. I didn't go. I didn't look back. 2 weeks later, Sarah came to my house carrying a large paper envelope. Inside was all the legal paperwork for the house in South Carolina that Nathan had fraudulently put in my name. She had redone all the paperwork to legally transfer the property to me, complete with my authenticated signature and notarized seals. I don't know what else to say except, "This is yours, truly yours." I nodded, thanked her, and said nothing more. We sat in the living room in silence. I made tea and she helped me tend to the potted plants near the window. Not many words were needed. Some pains once faced head-on don't need to be dug up again. They just need to be left alone like a heavy stone you've finally decided you no longer have to carry. A few months after that, I received a notification from the Financial Crimes Unit. The preliminary investigation was closed. The beach house was legally in my name. The money from the fraudulent account, along with restitution for the unauthorized use of my identity and personal damages, had been repaid. The total came to $94,680, including the principal and accrued interest. I didn't know what to do with the money at first. I never thought I would hold nearly $100,000 in my hands. But I knew one thing more clearly than anything else. I didn't feel victorious. I felt no satisfaction. I felt empty. Maybe because in the process of getting my name back, I had also lost something, an illusion. a feeling that I had once been truly loved by my son. And when that illusion shattered, as necessary as it was, it still hurt. But I also knew that if I hadn't done this, I would have continued to live as a shadow, a name that existed only to be used, forged, and then forgotten. I didn't want to die quietly as if I had never been here at all. I didn't choose revenge, but I chose the truth. I didn't win a battle, but I won back my life. I moved into the beach house on a day in March when the air still held a faint winter chill, but the wind carried the smell of damp sand and new leaves. The small moving truck pulled up to the porch at 9 a.m. The driver, a young man with blue-tipped hair, helped me unload 3 cardboard boxes and a gray armchair I'd insisted on keeping from my old house, the one Frank used to sit in to read the paper every morning. I thanked him and then stood there alone in front of the house where I should have been living for the past 2 years, if only. I didn't go inside right away. I stood looking at the white door with its blue trim, the freshly painted wooden steps, and the seashell wind chime tinkling on the porch. It was so beautiful it scared me, not because it was too big or too strange, but because every brick, every window pane, every lock was living proof of a betrayal. I used to dream of a house near the sea just like this with Frank. We'd talked about saving up to retire by the shore, listening to the waves every evening, and growing tomatoes in a backyard garden. But then Frank was gone, and Nathan had turned that dream into a mask to hide his own failures. I opened the door with the new key. The air inside smelled of pine newness, but also something cold and empty. It took me 3 days to unpack and arrange my things to fit the space. I didn't change the furniture. I kept everything as it was, even the wooden table Sarah's parents had once placed in the living room. But I changed the curtains, replaced the tablecloth, and hung up photos I'd taken at my old house. Slowly, little by little, I tried to make this place my own, not just on paper. In the back there was a small garden. Someone had planted roses, but they had withered. I started tilling the soil, pulling weeds, and adding fertilizer. I brought a few cuttings of lavender I'd grown outside my bedroom window in Indianapolis and planted them here. I didn't know if they would survive, but I wanted to try. On the 5th day I met Martha, a widow who lived across the street around 70, with her gray hair tied in a neat bun. She brought over a basket of apple turnovers, saying she saw your windows were always open and figured you were a fan of the sea breeze. Then she pointed to a fallen section of my back fence and said she'd ask her daughter's ex-husband to help fix it. The following week, an older couple, George and Sam, who lived 2 houses down, stopped by with some cherry tomato seeds. They grow like weeds in this soil, they said. I was surprised by their kindness. In my old city, it sometimes felt like people only spoke to each other when they were standing in the same checkout line. One afternoon, as I was pulling weeds, the mailman knocked on my door. He handed me a cream-colored envelope with no return address, just my name in handwritten letters. Inside was a folded piece of paper and a drawing. On the paper, a simple line was printed, "I miss Grandma. I told Mommy I want to go see the ocean with you." The drawing was of a woman with gray hair standing next to a little girl with pigtails. Behind them was an orange sun and blue waves drawn in marker. I stared at the drawing, then folded it carefully and held it to my chest. I sat down on the steps in the quiet afternoon, tears falling, before I even realized I was crying. But this time, I wasn't crying from pain. I was crying because I knew I wasn't completely alone anymore. Perhaps I had lost a son, but I still had a granddaughter. I still had the capacity to be loved, not as a name on a piece of paper, but as a real person of flesh and blood who was living, breathing, and learning how to start over. I placed the drawing on the small table by the window, where the afternoon sun would hit it every day. I didn't know when Sarah would let Ava visit me. It could be soon. It could be a very long time. But now I knew it was possible, and that was enough. A year after I moved to the beach house, spring returned, this time softer, gentler, as if time itself knew I had weathered enough cold winds. My mornings now begin with a cup of chamomile tea and a slow walk to the backyard garden where I replanted the lavender, the cherry tomatoes, and a few clumps of wild daisies Arthur gave me last July. I kept the roots of every plant, whether it survived the winter or not. Some things just need time to come back to life, just like me. I am no longer the woman in a thin coat cleaning an office at 4 a.m. in the dead of winter, counting out prescription money and telling herself just one more month. Nor am I the mother sitting alone in a cold kitchen thinking her son was just too busy to call. I am still me, but I am different. This past February, I wrote a post on an online forum for older women, a group I used to lurk in but never dared to post anything. I wrote about how my identity was stolen, how I was cheated out of 2 years of financial support, and how I had to choose between a mother's love and justice. I didn't use Nathan's real name. I just called him the person I gave birth to and raised with all the love I had. I didn't expect much, but in just 3 days the post had over 500 comments. A 72-year-old woman from Minnesota shared how her ex-husband sold off her entire retirement fund. A woman in Colorado was tricked by her own grandson into co-signing a mortgage. There were more stories than I could have imagined, so many that I realized I was never as alone as I thought. A week later, someone from the group sent me a private message. They were running a small network to support older women who had experienced financial abuse by family members. They asked if I would be willing to share my story at a meeting. I said yes, not because I thought I was special, but because I figured if I had dared to choose the truth over a false peace once, I couldn't go back to being silent again. The first meeting took place in my own home. I set out simple tea and cookies, tidied up the living room, and arranged a few extra wooden chairs around the fireplace. Martha brought an apple pie, and George and Sam brought a jar of their homemade raspberry jam. Sarah came with Ava. She didn't say much, but I saw her eyes were different, softer, deeper, without the cold defensive layer they had when we first met. After everyone had settled in, I stood up, holding the small notebook I had been writing in for the past year. The passage I read was the last one I wrote in my unpublished memoir, as I like to call it. I read in a slow, clear voice, "Forgiveness is a form of courage, but daring not to forgive can also be an act of justice. I chose not to forgive, not because I am bitter, but because I need to remind myself that I deserve to be protected even from the person I once loved most." The room was silent after I finished. There was no applause, and I didn't expect any. Just slow, understanding nods. A quiet, profound empathy. A white-haired woman named Helen asked me, "If you could go back, would you do things differently? Would you choose to forgive your son?" I was quiet for a moment, then answered, "I didn't turn in my son. I turned in the lie he had become." That evening, after the guests had left, I sat alone on the porch. The sea breeze was cool. The sand was damp beneath the steps. Inside, Ava was playing with building blocks while Sarah read a book. They were staying for a few more days. We planned to take a boat to a small island just off the coast on the weekend if it didn't rain. I closed my eyes and took a long, deep breath. I don't know how Nathan is doing now. I don't accept letters from the prison, and I don't write back. Maybe one day I will want to see him or hear him talk about what happened. But not today. Today, I just want to sit here, feel the wind on my skin, and know that I survived. I was deceived. I was betrayed. I lost my faith. But I am not the meek mother I used to be. I am me, an old woman with gray hair who lives by the sea and who has learned to stand on her own 2 feet, even in the wind. If you are a woman like me over 60 with hair that started graying when you weren't looking, living alone in a house that once held the laughter of a husband and children, but now only holds the ticking of a clock and the hiss of a kettle in the morning, then I want you to hear this from me. You are not invisible. You are not too old to be forgotten. And you are not weak just because you still feel things. I used to think I had to be silent to keep the peace in my family. That forgiveness was a mother's default setting, that if I just endured a little longer, everything would be okay again. But it's not true. Life doesn't fix itself, and family doesn't mean you have to trade away your self-respect. For a long time, I thought I was just a shadow in other people's lives, a poor but resilient mother, an old woman living in the cold with her memories watching life pass by like a stranger watching the tide. But then I learned something. Sometimes you have to stand up not to win against anyone, but to prove to yourself that you are still here, that you are still a person with a name, with boundaries, and with value. If you have ever been taken advantage of by someone, a child, a relative, a spouse, if you have ever felt pressured into silence because family is about forgiveness, or elders should be accommodating, I hope you remember this. Kindness should not be mistaken for tolerance, and forgiveness is not the same as denying justice. I am not writing these words as a woman who won. I didn't win against anyone. I just won back my name, my right to be a person, and my right to say no to what is wrong, even when it comes from the person you love most. I live by the sea now. I no longer have to count my pills every week. I have a granddaughter who sends me drawings and a small garden that is growing back from what I thought was dead. Most importantly, I have learned to talk to myself and to forgive myself for once. Being too kind, too trusting, and too quiet. If you've read this far and feel a pang in your heart, perhaps you carry a similar pain. Leave a few words below if you'd like. Or simply let me know that you are there, that you exist, and that you are trying every day. Because sometimes, just knowing that someone else understands, has hurt, and has stood back up is enough. I don't have all the answers. But if you need a message from a woman who has walked through the storm, this is what I want to say. You deserve to be trusted, you deserve to be heard, and you deserve to live a life that no one has the right to fake. What about you? What does this story remind you of? Have you ever had to choose between family and the truth? I want to hear your story. Leave a comment, not for me, but for yourself.